Hello everybody, I'm Charlie from Dr. Wen, and welcome along to another daily Doctor Who YouTube video. As promised, I am back, and I know I didn't do a video yesterday, but I'm going to do one video today and in fact 2 videos tomorrow to make up for it. So I'll be back where I started tomorrow night. So today, as you can probably guess, then I will be reading chapter 2 of Count Your Shadows. I hope you enjoy, and feel free to leave any feedback you have on this chapter in the comments below. So yes, let's get into this video, and I hope you enjoy. "Are you okay, Doctor?" Ian asked him, becoming increasingly aware of his frailness. Yes, Ian, I'm fine." The Doctor stood up and clicked the torch on. It flickered for a second, then remained bright. "What was that?" "A hologram. We've been in here all this time, Ian. We're trapped inside an evil TARDIS, and there's something coming for us." Instantaneously, a part of the TARDIS glowed a brilliant blue, and produced a deafening droning noise, like a broken computer. Immediately, a crackle of electricity emitted from it. Within seconds, it had taken a shape, and had changed so much, the crackle now resembled a dark-haired woman in her 30s, wearing a pearl necklace and a white turtleneck. "Barbara!" Ian exclaimed, rushing over to see her. Ian had always been rather fond of Barbara, and although he tried to keep it a secret, it was blatantly obvious to anyone who had ever met the pair. "Be careful, Ian. She might be a trick. A trap," the Doctor warned, but it was too late. By the time Ian had rushed over to her aid, her eyes glowed an obsidian black, resembling a rage that Ian couldn't even comprehend. "Do not come near me, mortal," Barbara shouted, in a voice extremely low, lower than Ian's or the Doctor's. Immediately, a burst of crimson light emanated from her manicured hand, and shot directly at Ian, who was still confused about Barbara's drastic shift in personality. Immediately, his eyes widened. He dropped to the floor with a sickening thud, and his eyes rolled back into his head. "Listen," the Doctor spoke calmly, knowing that aggression will cause her to hurt him, too. "I know you aren't Barbara. You are another life force, using her body to travel and harm the ones closest to her. All I want to know is why you are doing this." The Doctor's tone gradually got angrier as his sentences continued. "Well, what is it then? Anger? Loss? Revenge?" The Doctor would have carried on, but the outer parts of Barbara's eyes began to change. First a line of cobalt blue emerged, then the whites of her eyes showed. "Barbara, is that you?" the Doctor questioned, still extremely wary of her. Yes, Doctor, it's me, Barbara Wright," she spoke, out of breath. Thankfully, she had lost her monotonous, deep voice, and no beams of light were shooting out from her hands. "I'm sorry, Barbara, but you just knocked Ian here unconscious." "What? No, I didn't, Doctor. What are you talking about?" Barbara shouted, slightly angry at the Doctor's accusations. Within seconds, her eyes shifted over to Ian's unconscious figure on the TARDIS's cold metal floor. "Okay, Barbara, what do you remember about the Daleks? They invaded London, and we stopped them. Do you remember that, Barbara?" the Doctor queried. Yes, I do, Doctor. We stopped the Daleks, then returned to the TARDIS for another adventure. Susan left us, remember?" Barbara recalled. Yes, I do," the Doctor said. "But then what happened?" the Doctor asked, intrigued at where Barbara went while he was looking for Ian in the TARDIS for an entire week. "Ian and I were talking about work or something, and I appeared in a room, a sort of dome. It didn't seem to end," Barbara described. "It was completely white, and pieces of broken sort of machinery were floating in mid-air." "This is bad," the Doctor muttered to himself nervously. "This is extremely bad. Did anything else happen that you can remember?" "An odd figure appeared, and it moved towards me. It was strange, sort of black and white, and it had no shape. It was constantly twisting and turning. I'd say it was spherical, but it just wasn't. It was a completely different shape, sort of 4th or 5th dimensional. The next thing I remember, you were telling me that I'd knocked Ian unconscious," Barbara described, her face making it obvious that she was struggling to recall the events. "Okay, thank you, Barbara. Now, don't you think we should wake Ian up?" Yes, of course," Barbara said. After the pair had successfully awoken the unconscious schoolteacher, they all began to discuss their predicament. The Doctor explained to Barbara what had happened during her absence. "Well then, Doctor, what do we all do now? The TARDIS is ill and won't let us leave. The lights are completely out, and we're stranded in the middle of space," Barbara complained, a worried expression forming on her face. "Unfortunately, Barbara, we must travel to the TARDIS's engine room. It is one of the most dangerous places in the universe. In fact, it is the exact room that you described to me." The Doctor spoke rather cheerfully. "What do you think will be down there, Doctor?" Ian queried. "I'd imagine, Ian, that we shall find that black and white shape that Barbara found there. It may be the very thing that infected the TARDIS, and possibly Barbara." "What are you suggesting then, Doctor?" asked Barbara, a glimmer of hope emerging on her face. "We could catch the creature in the engine room, throw it out of the TARDIS, and we'll all be free." "Precisely, Barbara," spoke the Doctor, impressed at Barbara's initiative. "But, Doctor," Ian asked warily, "whatever's down there is definitely hostile. It possessed Barbara for a while, and it could use the TARDIS to trick us all again." "Rightly so, Ian. But can you recall an adventure we had where we didn't encounter a hostile alien?" After the Doctor, Ian, and Barbara had packed enough gear for the trip, the Doctor walked over to the main console and began to point an odd-looking cylindrical device at the time rotor. "Doctor, what on earth are you doing?" Barbara asked, slightly concerned at the Doctor's actions. The Doctor didn't respond. Instead, he stepped away, and a hatch opened at the bottom of the console. Steam flowed out of it. The Doctor then slowly climbed down it, until Ian and Barbara heard shoes on metal. "Come down, Ian. Come down, Barbara. It's completely safe," the Doctor shouted from the hatch. Reluctantly, the pair trudged over to the hatch and saw a neat, wide corridor. It was a deep shade of red and had white patterns embellished over the walls and low ceiling. No lights were on, but the Doctor's wrinkled face was illuminated by the torch his left hand was holding. Ian jumped down into the hatch, the clang of shoes on metal echoing throughout the TARDIS. Barbara leaped down after him. "Where are we, Doctor?" Barbara asked, curious at the change in appearance of the corridor. "We're in one of the lower levels of the TARDIS, Barbara," the Doctor spoke quietly. "The TARDIS is infinite, you know, so there are infinite levels above and below the console room." After a few seconds, the Doctor, Ian, and Barbara began to walk down the corridor at a slow pace. The atmosphere was eerie and tense, so unlike the fun and adventurous feel of the console room and its surrounding rooms. The only things that could be heard was the walking of the trio and the heavy breathing of Barbara, who was incredibly worried that whatever had possessed her would come back. "Doctor," Barbara whispered worriedly, a slight tear emerging in her right eye, "what if whatever made me hurt Ian comes back and does it again?" "I don't know, Barbara, to be honest. I don't know at all. Will it return or not? I don't know that either. I imagine it's inside the engine room, where we're headed." "Speaking of the engine room, Doctor, how far away is it? Will it take days like some of our adventures do?" Ian spoke, for the first time in a little while. "The TARDIS is completely unpredictable, Ian, and since we're trapped inside of it, the journey will be too. I recommend not trusting anyone. The TARDIS has a mind, Ian, and it's the smartest thing in the universe." The three continued walking down multiple corridors, all varying in appearance, size, and length. After a while, the Doctor stopped abruptly and looked at Barbara, who was in front of him, illuminated by his torch. He looked worried, panicked, frightened almost. "Barbara," the Doctor questioned quietly, his voice shaking slightly, "do you see your shadow? The one the torch is casting?" "Of course, Doctor. It's right in front of me. Surely you should know that I've made a shadow." "Do you see your second one?" To be continued. So I hope you've enjoyed that, everybody. Like I said, feel free to put your feedback on this chapter down in the comments below. Chapter 3 is coming on Monday, so I hope you look forward to that. And if you enjoy my daily Doctor Who content, feel free to subscribe to the channel. So, next time, then I will rank all episode 12s of New Who, so the revival era of Doctor Who since 2005. Hope you enjoy, and see you then.